What's up, guys? It's Inside the Puzzle here, back with another deck profile, but from Yu-Gi-Oh! Edison Format Edition. We're here with Frognarch, here with his undefeated deck profile. He won a, what was it, a Duel Link Dragon, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, that's right, bro.
Nice. We're gonna go through the deck, and then I'm gonna have some questions for you. You ready?
Yeah, let's go.
All right, cool. So we're gonna start off with three Substitute, two Treeborn Frog, three Swap Frog, two Dupe Frog, three Kuras the Light Monarch, three Caius the Shadow Monarch, three Rise of the Storm Monarch, one Cyber Valley, two Dark Death Spirit, one Tragodia, one Gores, two Battle Fader, two Fire of Doomsday, Scapegoat, one for one, three Econs, three Soul Exchange, a Brain Control, Heavy Storm, MST, and Treacherous Trap Hole. For the side deck, it was three Vanity's Fiend, two Cyber Dragon, one Unifrog, three DD Crow, two Book of Moon, two Bottomless Trap Hole, two Dust Tornado. For the extra, one Chimera Fortress Dragon, one Armory Arm, one Allied Justice Catastor, one Junk Warrior, one Magical Android, one Flamvel Uruchloriazus.
A funny one.
Yeah, really awkward spelling. One Brianna, Dragon of the Ice Barrier. We got one Goyo Guardian. We have Ancient Fairy Dragon. We have Junk Archer. We have Black Rose Dragon. Stardust Dragon. Dark End Dragon. Dark Ruler Archfiend. And Mistworm. So, first question. How was your tournament experience in the Dueling Book tournament?
Yeah, so I'm in the luxury Facebook group for a while. So I'm pretty experienced with these tournaments. There's money tournaments going on like pretty regularly, every couple months. Or I think I've been there about a year or two.
How many
So
have you won so far?
there's 4-man tournaments. There's like 8-man tournaments, and sometimes there's like really big tournaments like this one. And this was technically 64-man. But the thing about it is, and I think this is something you did as well, is that you're able to get slots, so you can just buy like a number of lives. So in this case, because there's 64 slots, you're able to get maximum of 8 each. So if you just pay extra, then you get like extra lives, which is something that I definitely wanted to do. And I think you did the same, right?
That is correct. You actually beat me in the finals.
Oh yeah,
Really well.
it was a tight one. And like I think, well, our game in particular, I think it really could have gone either way. And I think, especially game 2, I saw you like brick a couple turns in a row and discarded Judgment Dragon. I was like, hell yeah, this is going my way.
Yeah, that was truly unfortunate. Truly unfortunate indeed. So, the thing that really captivated me about your deck list was the usage of token generators through Fire of Doomsday and Scapegoat. Do you mind explaining this tech choice a little bit?
Yeah, so I call this Kuras Token Frog. And I suppose that's probably what it's going to be called from going forward. And I figured, Kuras is a card that is obviously seeing a lot of innovation with, like, KFC, and we've been trying to make various iterations of KFC Frog, like, even including, like, Gear Town and stuff. But I figured, like, I could just keep it simple, and as one iteration of a deck idea, I could just, like, Frognarch from like 2015, just the basic frogs and monarchs, and it's just the like econs soul exchange stuff, and just use that as a basic platform to get Kuras just to do its thing. And the great thing about that is the theme here is using Kuras and Cyber Valley to convert cards in a favorable way to ensure that you get follow-ups. So for example, if you use like Soul Exchange plus Kuras and kill their guy, and then Kuras kill your Treeborn and your Kuras to draw 2, then that means that effectively you're trading 2 cards for 3. And you're getting rid of their threat, and you're not only drawing 2, but then that means like you're establishing a follow-up. You might draw into like token generators. You might draw into more monarchs, you might draw into more stealing spells. And I think, especially if you've played classic Frognarch, like 2015 style, like with Thestalos and like Dark Dust Spirit and all that cool stuff that everyone loves from back in the day, a lot of the issues you would face with the deck is that you would end up having a mix of both that's really unfavorable. So you might have like too many stealing spells, too many hand traps, too many monarchs, too many frogs. So what you really want in those scenarios is just to draw more of your deck and to get to whatever it is that completes completes the combo that you want. So like you want more monarchs, you want more monarchs, you want more frogs, you need hand traps, you need more stealing spells, whatever it is, then hopefully drawing through the deck is going to get you there. And that's certainly what happened in my tournament experience. That was how Kuras and Cyber Valley helped me during those 6 games, during 6 matches that I played.
Did you feel like so did you play during original Edison format?
I mean, I was around at the time, certainly, but I wasn't like a competitive player. I was like 15. I was in school, and I live in Ireland, by the way. So I mean, like at the time, I wasn't familiar with any of the tournament schedules or like how to play competitively, and especially, I mean, I was. Even now, I'm especially disposed to just like doing my own thing and just creating my own decks, which by now works really well because I'm really experienced with the game. But at the time, like creating my own decks from scratch, that was like a really dumb idea. So I was not very good at the game back then. But over time, I've built my skills, and here I am creating my own decks. What was the question again?
So my initial question was if you played during like original Edison format, because looking at like top performing deck lists from like I guess like the Shonen Jump, Edison,
Yeah.
this deck just seems very ahead of its time in a sense. So like
This one?
that's like more of like what I was trying to get at with like the questioning here, because like this deck itself just seemed like a very superior version of a Frognarch deck.
I agree. Yeah, I would say like of the variations of actual Frognarchs, as opposed to like say a hybrid with like Hero Frogs or Diva Frogs, I would say this is the one that you could actually call just standard Frognarch. But at the same time, I think this kind of handles a lot of its weaknesses and like gets it kind of moving in a way that it hasn't done before.
Because of the draw
And
engine of Kuras, correct?
yeah, for sure. Yeah, that's it. And like um yeah, and the tokens as well, like that was a really cool thing. Especially like if you saw, speaking to the viewers here, if you saw the DB Grinder game and like I game 1 against can I call you Richie? Can I call you Inside the Puzzle? What do you prefer?
You can call me inside the puzzle. That's fine. Richie's fine too.
Yeah, so against Inside the Puzzle, like game 1, I didn't even open any frogs, and like I just straight up like went monarch after monarchs purely because Fires of Doomsday was an alternate opening. So that was kind of a cool idea as well. That it also allowed me to just play the game even without needing to necessarily open the frogs. So that was kind of cool. But yeah, I would say like of the Frognarch builds that I've seen that can be called standard Frognarch, I would say this is the best one that I've seen so far. And you know, not to blow my own smoke or whatever, because I did make this myself, but I just think it does work the best. And especially, you can also see it in action in that match. And maybe Inside the Puzzle could link that in the description as well, the actual game on DB Grinder. But I think it was really cool to demonstrate as well that this deck can just really dig itself so far, because obviously people know about Substitute, like you just send 8 to 10 cards from the deck most games that you resolve it. But then after you've done that, then that makes Kuras and Cyber Valley especially powerful, because then you're suddenly digging for 2 cards out of your thinned deck, so you're not drawing any frogs anymore. You're just drawing like stealing spells and power monarchs and hand traps, which practically guarantees that whatever it is that you need, you're probably going to get it.
Oh, so it's essentially like having like a better version of Pot of Avarice versus like shuffling in dead cards that would be like bad versus like late game scenarios in a sense.
Hell yeah, that's exactly it for sure. Because I mean, especially anyone who's talked to me about frogs, like on the Edison discords, for example, or you know, I'm very very passionate about frogs in all kinds of ways. Then yeah, a Pot of Avarice, you know that's a card that I can't stand. I just like, especially the way that I've progressed in my frog career, as you could call it that. Especially the single moment that really boosted me the most was when I just cut Pot of Avarice altogether, and I abandoned it for more Monarchs, or for more Engine, or for more whatever it is. Like I feel like Pot of Avarice is always one of those cards that bricks you in the early game, doesn't help you against aggro matchups, doesn't help you in the post side, especially when they start starting in like Crows and Soul Release and Kaiku and all this kind of annoying stuff. And in general, I just think it's kind of a win more card that it really doesn't even help you that much, to be honest. Like you're just, as you said, you're shuffling in mostly frogs that you don't want to draw anymore anyway. And it's only a +1 in the best case scenario. So I think, yeah, abandoning Pot of Avarice in favor of other stuff that digs you in other ways or that gives you other side benefits that really play to the frog's strengths, I think is always going to be the way to go with the deck.
Was there any time in which you felt like you wanted more Fire's Doomsday versus like the one Scapegoat?
No, Scapegoat was definitely a power card for sure. Like people who have played around with Scapegoat in Frogs, like like once you've resolved Scapegoat plus Substitute, it's certainly a power thing. But also with Kuras, it's just really fantastic, and it buys you a lot of extra time. It makes sure that if your opponent is delivering like a lot of aggressive pushes, then you can kind of handle that for at least a turn or two. Now, I mean, in general, Scapegoat is a card that I wouldn't be a huge fan of in general because it tends to be, well, I don't know. I mean, especially in decks that didn't historically play multiple enemy controller, then it tended not to really even help you in the early game. In here, it really does because, of course, you have enemy controller, you have Kuras, you have Cyber Valley, you have a lot of ways to capitalize on that. In Diva Frog, for example, that has, like Karina, for example, played Scapegoat and used it with her triple enemy controller as well as Divas and Substitute, in which case it's fine. But, I mean, especially like in 2021, 2022, I felt that the Gladiator Beasts and Blackwings, as well as Lightsworn, were incredibly popular trends, or what can you say, meta threats that it really had to contend with. So, I mean, for example, versus Gladiator Beasts, obviously you don't want to resolve a Scapegoat there because they just use it to tag out of. Against Blackwings, they just end up killing you with like an Armed Wing plus Kalutes and stuff. Against Lightsworn, they just resolve a Judgment Dragon and wipe it anyway. So it's not like something like a Threatening Roar, which can save you against Judgment Dragon. But in general, despite that, I think, especially with the meta shaping up the way it is with like Zombies and Diva Hero and a lot of other aggressive decks that actually do have more of a problem with Scapegoat, I think it ends up evolving to be a better meta call for the moment. And so in that sense, Fires of Doomsday versus Scapegoat, like you can say on one hand that yes, it works really well with Caius, but in general, having like the more tokens, the better, because the longer it stays around, the longer you're gonna end up drawing into more Cyber Valley and Kuras, and the longer they stick around, then the more likely it is that you'll have more of them around to plus out of. So that was my answer there.
Okay. So leaning towards the extra deck, could you kind of explain like the thought process of the extra deck? Because like I see in your main inside
Yeah,
that you don't essentially have any tuners, right? Was
yeah.
this strategy based on like if you econned and took their tuner?
Well, the funny thing about that is, yeah, I hope you bring that up, in fact, because, yeah, the extra deck is actually complete nonsense in this case. Yeah, at one stage I did have Junk Synchron in the extra deck, as I'm sure you could guess, from the Junk Warrior, Junk Archery. If you're building this deck at home, like, feel free to put whatever you want in the extra deck, to be honest, because, yeah, like, you could steal tuners of whatever kinds, like, the biggest tuner that you end up stealing in the game is probably Gale, so you could put like an Armor Master, I guess, but it really doesn't matter. Or like Armed Wing as well. But yeah, I think what was I going to say about that? Yeah, I think like it was the fact that this was kind of like rushed at the gate as well. Like this was kind of a last minute decision to which of my frog decks am I going to include in this tournament. Of my 8 slots, I had 8 lives, so I decided to put 8 different frog decks, see which did the best. This was definitely one of them, and I was actually kind of surprised that it did so well, but I suppose it just does have those fundamentals. It does have like a lot of flexibility. It is able to handle a lot of scenarios with, regardless of whether it's multiple monsters or just set monsters, or, it can come at like Blackwings, just Monarch after Monarch. It could be like a grind game with Kuras. It can be Dark Dust Spirit with a play every turn. It ends up being quite flexible. But at the same time, yeah, there was other frog decks that I brought, and there's some fairy frog decks. There was a Kuras frog. What else was there? There was like it was pretty experimental. Machina frog. So I mean, all of those decks are decks that I've had varying degrees of success with, or that I've brought to other tournaments, or they're iterations that I wanted to test. So I was just kind of interested to see which would come out on top. I mean, any deck that I brought had to go either either 5-0 or 6-0, depending whether I got two decks to go 5-0 at the same time and then end up facing myself in the finals. But in the end, it was this deck that went 6-0. A lot of the decks like just went like either 1-0 or 0-1 or something. Kind of unfortunate, but it was a tough tournament, by the way. I mean, like there was a lot of especially for a frog player, like there was a lot of I think you noticed this as well. There was like a lot of gladiator beasts. There was a lot of fairy sworn, especially yourself as well. You were playing fairy sworn.
Yes, I was playing fairy sworn.
Was that your main choice? Because you had like 8 slots as well, right? What decks did you bring?
So for the tournament, I had brought fairy sworn, and I had brought a Vayu spam deck that was essentially just like a combo deck, and I also had brought chain burn.
Really? Huh.
Yeah.
Didn't see that one.
Yeah.
How did that go?
The chain burn didn't do so well.
Rough.
Yeah, man.
I saw the combo deck, the Vayu combo deck, and I was pretty freaked by that. I was like, that's exactly the sort of deck a frog player does not really want to see, because it just goes like endless gas, and you end up having to deal with several waves of aggression.
Well, actually, that's kind of like, I guess, like a misconception, because like a lot of the combo decks kind of fear frog monarchs because of how oppressive and like your spot removal with Kuras. Like, if you have like the soul exchange, right, paired with like Kuras, or not Kuras, Caius, right, that's essentially like 2 for 2, but then like you're basically removing resources out of the game and inflicting damage. So like in the grand scheme of thing, even with Ryza, it's just like being able to set somebody back is just like very oppressive on a turn by turn basis.
For sure, it can go either way. Yeah, definitely.
Let's talk about your side deck. Well, what like compelled you to play like the 3 Vanities, the 2 Cyber Dragon, especially the Unifrog and like the 3 DD Crows is like your monster choices.
Is this connection bad?
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Great. So the side deck choices, I would say this is like pretty standard, especially for me. Like this is like pretty much copy paste like what I would usually start out with a frog template and just go with this, more or less. Like occasionally I might cut a unit frog for the 3rd Dust Tornado or something, or like cut a book, cut some Cyber Dragons for like, I don't know, like Dust Shoot Mind Crush or whatever it is that might go with a secondary engine. But yeah, it's pretty standard. Like Vanity's Fiends worked really well all day. Obviously, like it's for frogs, it's for Dragon Turbo, it's for Fairy Light Sworn for sure. That came in big, like really good against you in the finals.
Yeah, very strong, very impressive.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I'm really happy with Vanity's Fiend, and especially like some builds I would have like Dyna in the side deck instead, because it's better at handling Drill Warrior, and like Drill Warrior is definitely something that could cause this deck problems. So that's a big reason to include that in the side deck. But yeah, Dyna is worse if you have like Econs and Soul Exchanges, because then Vanity's Fiend just capitalizes on that, and like you get rid of their guy and you establish a Vanity's Fiend, which is really oppressive for them. So especially versus Fairy Light Sworn, Dragon Turbo, all those kinds of decks, it's really effective. Cyber Dragon, I think there was a Machina player that came up, maybe, but it's not really even for Machina. That's just like a handy side benefit. Mostly the fact is that Cyber Dragon is there for Gladiator based. So I'd say this deck has a reasonable, like even despite the tokens and like all the monarchs, I'd say it has a fair chance against Gladiator beasts, because like, I don't know, there's like Battle Fader, Soul Exchange, these kinds of things. And especially if you resolve a Kuras with some tokens, then you have a lot of extra resources. So if you end up like kind of trading really favorably with them, then it might actually go okay. But yeah, Gladiator Beast is such a random matchup. And like they really force you into a top deck war, and you have to really guess their back row, which is completely random, especially because they like have their own.
Counter
Like
trap.
Nesty had his own tech choices that were really weird, and I was just like, yeah, no, we need some extra something in the side for Gladiator Beast. So that's normally where Cyber Dragon comes in.
Okay.
Crow is a big standard card that I'm a big fan of. I think like there's some frog players who tend to skimp on this and only have like one or two, and I'm like, oh, bro, what are you doing? That's just like, I think it is the single most important card in the side deck. Like for frogs, definitely, in my opinion.
Do you feel like it was like a mandatory hand trap that like you wanted to utilize at most points of the game?
Absolutely. And I'm pretty sure when I played you against or with Vayu, I'm pretty sure that came up hitting like your Plague Spreader. I can't remember exactly what it was, but it really, really did come in clutch for sure.
That's
Remember?
fair. Yeah, I think it wasn't the. Yeah, it was definitely the value because I couldn't extend. It wasn't a plague. It was definitely a value, and then it kind of set me back. And then I think you also did hit the plague right afterwards with another one.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, for sure. And then like, so in terms of the matchups it would come in for, it would be like Light Swarm. So you hit like Wolf, Plague, um, sometimes like keep them off Judgment Dragon, disrupting their Beckoning Light, or like after the Beckoning Light, then you can do that. Especially versus, pardon me, Fairy Light Swarm. Then like, especially after the Beckoning Light there, then you can really mess them up. Especially if you like hit either a Shire or a Celestia that hits like that disrupts their fairy count and their light sworn count. That can be really, really important. Versus Vayu, of course, as we just mentioned, that's like you can disrupt them in multiple ways. And especially post side, they tend to bring in deck devastation virus, and they're relying on their Vayu to give them the armed wing for that. So if you prevent them from doing that, then not only do you prevent their aggression, but you also prevent them from hitting you with the stupid deck devastation that can like it can sometimes like hit you for 5 randomly, or sometimes it's only 1, but it's completely beyond your control as to how many that's going to hit. So it's great. It's great to have a bit of control with Crow as to what happens to you. You know, other matchups would be like Quick Draw, hitting their Avarice and Debris, versus Norliras, because that's definitely a really stupid one where they can just like randomly like turn 1 Norliras you, and then like, what do you do if you don't have Treeborn active? You just die. So that's a good one. Like Hopeless Dragon, Dragon Turbo, you can side in for that, for their Excavations and Avarice. I mean, there's so many more matchups beyond that. Like even in the tournament, one of the cool matchups that we saw was I don't know if you faced this as well. There was a really cool Flamvel deck. Did you come up against that yet?
No, I think I got knocked out in the early rounds because I think I only played what I would perceive as meta. So I think it was like GBs, Black Wings, Frogs, and like maybe one Lightsworn Mirror.
Yeah. Yeah, well, there was a really cool Flamvel deck, and it had like double Treeborn, and it was like kind of light on the traps, but kind of like with discard traps, and it was a really cool build anyway. But it turned out like these are the kinds of decks that are starting to evolve now, where they end up being like really fast, really flexible, but also really graveyard focused. So the more that the meta starts to evolve and people start to develop their own strategies like that involve the grave a bit more, I find Crow is becoming even more effective as we go along. So I think triple Crow is for sure the way to go. As for the rest of the side, a lot of it is for Gladiator Beasts and for Blackwings. So Bottomless Chapel is for those two matches specifically for sure. Although you can certainly see in our match together that I brought those in for Fairy Light Swarm, and it was really cool that I was able to banish your Christio and like get that out of my hair immediately. I did not want to face that. But also like it just puts people back a turn. Like not only does it put them back a turn, like Gladiator Beasts and Blackwings and Lightsworn, but I mean all three of those decks, they really want to have that graveyard set up, whether it's for Blizzard, whether it's for a quest, or whether it's for Judgment Dragon or Illumina, whatever it is, like ending their turn and also like erasing their setup. I just find that to be like an incredibly useful and like indispensable part of countering those matchups. And then the same as kind of Dust Tornado, like if you can If you can clear their back row and then just come in with a Monarch, then I think that normally tends to hit so much harder because they bring in rugs, they bring in, I don't know, like people randomly bring in skill drain in some matchups, especially hero beat. That was one of the matchups that I faced as well. There was like a stun hero beat, so that was really, really important to have multiple Dust Tornado.
Okay.
In some variants, I would have like triple Dust Tornado if I can, because I just find it to be that important because it can hit the face-up floodgates and it can also hit the rugs. So both of those are things that you need to be really aware of because like if your monarchs aren't doing anything, then what's the point? Or like if your substitute doesn't resolve, or if your like dupe block is turned off or whatever, or if you just can't do anything, then like you want to be able to play the game the way you want to and have control, rather than letting their back row that they side in just decide for you. And in the same sense, Unifrog, that is kind of skipped over there, it's the same idea.
Okay.
So it's one that you would summon with Substitute, and you get to destroy their, say, Massive Restrict or Oppression, or especially Rug. This is the one that eats the most. Like, it just kills pulling the Rug for free, like a +1. Like, how cool is that? Like, especially because that's what they're mostly going to be siding in. It's a really popular choice. And I certainly did see that a lot in the tournament.
So essentially,
I think
it's like a high impact bait out card.
For sure, it really is. And like, especially if you can protect it somehow. Like, normally what I do is I just like substitute, send everything, like send even the second dupe if I have to, send like all the swaps, send all the subs, and just end on dupe plus Unifrog. So you eat one per turn. Every single turn that Unifrog is staying alive, it's going to eat one more, and the dupe is there to protect it. So it's a great little combo. And it's just a built-in thing with the Frog engine that lets you like clear the threats that you need to follow up with your monarchs. And like even dupe can just after they break the dupe block, you can search Unifrog and just have that for later. It's great.
Well, thank you so much, Cormac, for blessing us with this deep insight on Frogs 101. Well, we truly genuinely appreciate it, and I hope that we get to see you more. Will you be playing at side events at any future YCS Edison tournaments?
For sure, and especially you'll probably see me at the IRL really big Edison tournament hosted by Keegan in in California. So I'm coming all the way from Ireland to go compete in that in June. So I'm really looking forward to that.
Nice, man. I hope you win, man.
Be great.
Well, this is Inside the Puzzle signing out, and Cormac, thank you again. I will leave the link below for the finals match so that you guys can also see it. And Inside the Puzzle out.